Hi family, it's Willow, and I'm back with my second video about what's going on and what we can do about it and my journey through the last stage of my life. I'm going to give you my 2 cents and 3 cents and 5 cents on what's going on from my point of view and from looking back what I've lived through and seen, and as a historian have studied what we might do about it. No, what we can do about it if we all get together and do our best. Okay? I'm 70 and I'm about to move to a seaside town on the Gulf. It'll be my last home. I'll have about 20 years down there. And I'm really looking forward to it. It's familiar, but I've never lived there. So I am looking forward to exploring and making new friends and stuff. I do know a few people, including someone special down there. So I'm looking forward to spending my last years full of making memories. And I'm inviting you to come along. Now, I've worked all my life in different fields, and I've studied many things in the higher levels of education. But the two subjects that my life has always revolved around off, what do you want to call it? Off the register, off the clock, my spare time, has been politics and religion, because they seem, especially as a daughter of the South, so much a part of every breath we take. And as I've traveled around the world and the United States, I see and know how important they are and how much they make a part of every decision or breath that everyone takes. I also have seen, and am seeing the fruit of the awakening that started back in the 50s and 60s in the rejection of the way of life that people were seeing on TV as being the perfect and only way. And so it started as a rebellion in the Beat generation. It went on into the hippies. It went on into what came next, maybe nuclear power. We had the women's movement. There's been a lot of movements for freedom and talking. And then we ended up 3 years ago with the pandemic and Black Lives Matter. Both were transformative social events. So I've watched all that. And I really came of political age during the Cuban Missile Crisis and the assassination of Kennedy, King, and Kennedy. The KKK got their blood there. Talking about blood, we're paying in blood now. We're paying in the blood of our youth and babies. We're paying for the warped concept that they have made out of the Second Amendment and using it as a tool to rain terror down on ordinary people who are only asking for reasonable adaptations and laws that have been shown to reduce exactly the kind of madness and blood that's going on. But if you want to get down to the business of why our nation, it's more than just we have no gun laws. It's more than that. It's that we have built our whole economy since World War II around the manufacturing of weapons of war. All the advances in our industries have come as an application of wartime use, the needs of the troops, the needs of the military. and the technology filters down to consumer use. But our economy is built on that. If you don't believe me, look at the damn budget and how much we spend on military every year, although they haven't been able to pass an audit in like 20 years. They can't account for billions and billions and billions of dollars over those years. That's got to stop. We've had chances. The last one in the 60s in the anti-war movement that broke out against the Vietnam War. We had chances then to lay down the sword and beat it into a plowshare. And we refused. No, the overlords of fossil fuel, which was the whole excuse to go into Vietnam, what was it? The Gulf of Tonkin incident, which we later found out through the Pentagon Papers, had been orchestrated and carried out by the CIA operatives to induce an incident and give an excuse to go in and replace the French who were withdrawing. Okay? So we've been using war in the back door all this time. And let's not start on South America, because we've got a whole talk coming up about the future and Central and South America. But right now, let's get back to what we're talking about today. We're going to pull an oracle card. I try to start my day with some kind of outlook. And I find oracle cards give me a general outlook and advice on what to look forward through the day. This time we're going to use it to look forward and to examine, to examine the issues of today. As far as issues of today, I've watched on and off. I've tried to watch some stuff. I know there's a lot of legal things going on, not just with Trump. I know there's a lot in the news about other stuff too, and internationally, not just the war in Ukraine, but what's going on with the leaked Pentagon documents, who did it, and France, China. Let's take a look and see what our response to today has been. Oh, look at this. Kali, Kali, Kali. Endings and beginnings. The old must be released so that the new can enter. Isn't that what we were just talking about last? Is how we have to get rid of the old so that we can create this new reality that benefits everyone. And with the upcoming eclipse on the 19th, there is a good opportunity to get rid of what's holding us back so that we have a clear path to create the life we want and deserve and can imagine. That's a good one. Endings and beginnings. And that's the whole thing that's going on in the governments and in the whole world at large, is that the old way is ending and the new way is beginning. And there's going to be chaos, but we can't be turtles and crawl into our shells. Each one of us can help in our own way. Okay? So that's good advice, to look at all the chaos that's going on today as a normal beginning and ending. And as Kali, understand that we destroy in order to create. It's not going to be peaceful. Okay, let's draw 3 cards and see if we can identify what we should look at today. Okay, now we drew the Ace of Cups, the Six of Wands, and the Seven of Wands reversed. Aces are about sudden bursts of pure energy and change within that sign. And cups are about emotions. They're about the creative side of us that comes from our soul and heart. Comes from this chakra. But it's reversed. It's pouring out. There is that grief in the air, isn't there? Everything that's going on is causing grief. And in some ways we want to turn away, but we can't. We really can't. Now the next one, interestingly, is the Six of Wands. And that's a card of triumph. And I believe this is talking about how we felt that tipping point back in December, where we were willing to stand up and be engaged in making this change. Interestingly, look at what we have on the 7. We have the Seven of Wands reversed. This is a battle card. But when it's reversed like that, I believe it stands with this Ace of Cups, beginning and endings. They're connected. This is the grief going out. This is the losing battle. Why did it lose? Because the light came in. The Six of Wands conquered. So, I believe we're looking at that every day when more and more is revealed. I believe that more and more light shines into the darkness through those revelations. And I think I've always believed that the majority, not the majority, that all people are good. And making bad decisions is a conscious decision. But what you make a decision about, you can unmake. We have to respond to this grief that's coming out in a toxic reaction from these people that are being disillusioned. We have to respond with compassion and also with non-reaction to neutralize this kind of toxic aggression. Yes, we have to grab them up and restrain them. But we have to identify them. We can identify them. And get them the help they need medically and psychologically with their aggression and frustration and fear through a social system that is broken. So that's something we have to demand in our governments, in our local governments, in our state governments. Social systems helping take care and responding to these kind of crises, for before they go out and buy one of these so-called legal guns. We've got to work toward banning assault rifles. We demand that the kids that go into the military and are issued those go through all kinds of training. But we let 18-year-olds, in some cases younger than that, go into stores and buy them legally with no background check, with no training on how to handle a gun, with no license, nothing. Just go in and get them. Sometimes 2 and 3 within a few days, and as much ammunition as they can afford. Some of these spree attacks, they have spent over $3,000 in ammunition and weapons for the attack on the schools. And this was a student. Give me a damn break. If anybody wants to talk about the Second Amendment, as a historian, I will sit down and talk to you about the history of the Second Amendment, and we'll get down to this basis of it, because it wasn't envisioned this way by the Founding Fathers. So let's just stop that bullshit right now. Getting back to our subject, though, is how do we react to this kind of toxic aggression? We have to do it. It's a simplification to say, love the sinner but not the sin. Yeah, that's a way, if you're not looking at it in a religious way, if you're looking at it, love the person and try to stop the action. This is preventable. This kind of aggression comes out of frustration and fear. And this is preventable. We know what these same type of people bubble over on and finally tip and go off like murderous rampages. We see that. We have identified that through psychological assessments. If we can identify it, we can stop it. And not through military tactics. That's why social services, medical services needs to be involved in these kind of prevention, and then when something like this happens. We also need to respond in a non-reactive way. We have to not just say prayers and thoughts, prayers and thoughts. There is a place for those. There is also a place for action. And this year alone, we've had more mass shootings than we've had days. It is time for action. Now is the time. Here is the place. Nashville's leading the way right now. We have to send our money up there. Any of us that can afford it, if it's $5, send it up to Nashville. You can get online and just Google the Nashville 3. And there's a link there, I know, through PayPal to a GoFundMe. And thank God for this generation, because they have a clarity and they have the passion and they have the knowledge to do this. These 3 will come out leaders, and there'll be others just like they will lead from this, like, is it David Hogg from the Parkland shooting in Florida? They will join him. There is going to be a lot of Southern racist touch to this one in Nashville, of course, because the same legislative, the same chamber that threw them out for disrespecting the chamber, have let one of their members pee on an opponent's chair and not dismissed him. They've had fights there. And in its long, illustrious history, as the state where the KKK was born, has never, before or after the Civil War, dispelled, blocked, voted out a single member of the KKK. Does that say a lot? Those two uppity black boys was just too much for those white men. And I do spell white, W-H-Y-T-E, men, to take. Well, now that's pretty well my rant today. The way we learn to be non-reactive is to talk to each other instead of bottling it up inside, and then we release it. It's like when you meditate, you don't stop the thoughts from coming through. It's when they do come through, you let them pass through you, over you, under you, and beside you. And that's what you have to do when you hear these things, is just let them pass through, knowing that you're not going to give them energy by reacting to them. You acknowledge that they've happened and you've heard it, and then you let it go. In practice, it's a lot easier than it actually sounds when you talk about it. But you have to look at things in perspective, and you have to practice then. Once you get into that non-reactive state on these kind of violent, toxic, aggressive things, you don't carry them around with you. They pass over you. It's you're expecting them because you know how they're acting is because they're hurt. That's where the compassion comes in. That doesn't mean you stand for what they're doing. Because just because you have compassion for what's making them do it and have compassion for them as a human soul doesn't mean you condone their action or you don't hold them accountable and responsible for their actions. Free will is what humanity is about. We have to be willing to take responsibility for that. And as part of that, then we also have to be willing to stand up for what we know is right. This is not the time to sit around and just, how shall I say it, stand quiet or put your eyes down when you hear a horrible remark, be it racist or gender-based, sex-based, any kind of toxic remark that tries to make the other of anyone. It's beyond time when we stand silent or just put our eyes or at most walk out. It's the time to stand up and say, no, that's not right. And if they're misquoting something, explain how they're misquoting. You watch the news the same as the rest of us. And if you don't know the percentages and stuff like that, you can stand for the principle. And just stand for them not being right. Give them your personal experience that makes you see things a different way. Share your personal testimony to the being open-hearted and open-minded, okay? It's not that hard, and it is time that we started doing this. That's what will make us join together, because when one stands up, another one gets their nerve broken and they stand up. That's how we join together. Why do we join together? Because this spinning marble in space is all our home. There are no lines on the globe when you look down from the International Space Center. No marks, no lines. Those are only in our imagination and in maps, pictures we've drawn up on the paper. And those maps aren't accurate. Check out the size of Africa compared to the rest of the world, continent by continent, in true proportion. You're going to be surprised. But we all share that. It's all of our home. And we're all family. We all go through the same highs and lows, challenges and joys that each of us do, each of us experience. So it's time that we start looking each one in the eye every day that we meet the people we don't know, and acknowledge that family connection. Okay? We're one family. And lastly, if we can acknowledge that, then we understand that the only way we get there is through one love. So remember, one home, one family, and one love. Peace out, guys.